All right, so today we're going to look at rewriting standard form into slope-intercept form. Now, this is going to look and feel a little bit scary at first, but it's actually one of the topics that my students tend to do the best on. Okay, it's kind of a process that you follow, and if you follow the steps every time, you'll always get to the right answer. So a lot of my students tend to like that. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to take something called standard form and we're going to change it into slope-intercept form. Okay, so standard form is like these equations down here. So far, all the equations that we've done have always been like y equals something x plus something. And you can kind of see that these ones don't look like that, right? The y's and the x's are on the same side. There's a number in front of the y, and it's a little bit different, okay? So this is what equations in standard form look like. All right, and we're going to learn how to graph these. Okay, so the first step in graphing them is taking these equations and rewriting them into our good old slope-intercept form, which remember, that's just y equals mx plus b. So our end goal is to make these equations be in that format, where it's y equals some number x plus some number. Okay, right now they're in standard form, and standard form is when you have ax plus by equals c. So some number x plus some number y equals some other number. Okay, and standard form, it's standard. Mathematicians like to have their standard forms where they look a certain way, but it doesn't really give you a lot of useful information like slope-intercept form does, right? Slope-intercept form gives you a slope and an intercept, right? And we've talked about how useful that is, like in our word problems, how you can see rates of change and things like that. Okay, standard form doesn't really give you that stuff. So it's the standard form that mathematicians like, but it's kind of less useful than this form. Okay, so here's what our steps are going to be. So step one is going to be that you are going to subtract whatever the ax term is from both sides. Okay, so step one is going to be to subtract that from both sides. Okay, so for this one, the ax term, a just means whatever number is in front of the x. Okay, so in this case, it's 12x. So what we're going to do to start with is I'm going to subtract 12x on both sides. That's going to cancel out. Oh, here's my nice line for my equal sign. This is going to be 6y. And then over here, be careful because you can't actually subtract those two numbers. One has an x and one doesn't, so they're not like terms. Okay, so we can't actually subtract those. So we're going to have to leave them separately. You could leave it as 18 minus 12x, right? But I know in the end I want the x term in front of the number. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this guy and I'm going to kind of sneak him in the front of the 18. Okay, so I'm going to write it as negative 12x. And then since that's a positive 18, I'll write plus 18. Okay, so I just kind of snuck it in the front. We left them separate, so they're the same two things. You can see that they were, right? But I kind of snuck that one in the front just so we're a little closer to being in the right format. All right, great. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to divide by whatever b is, okay? And b just means whatever number's in front of y. So in this case, it's the 6. So I'm going to divide by the 6. All right, and now here's the trick. When you divide by 6, you don't just divide this by 6, and you don't just divide one of these by 6. You actually have to divide all of them by 6. So all three things are going to get divided by 6. So these will cancel. We don't have y equals negative 12 divided by 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Multiplication, division bear, that'd be a mouth and an eye. So that's a negative 2x. And then 18 divided by 6 is 3. All right. And then the last thing that you always want to just do is make sure that the terms are in the right order. Okay, now we already kind of took care of that, okay, because right here when we snuck it in front, we made sure that they were in the right order, and they're still in the right order now. Okay, but if you'd forgotten, if instead of doing this guy sneaking it in front, you'd written 18 minus 12x, that's totally cool. You just got to make sure you turn it around at the end, okay? So that's it. That's our equation in slope-intercept form. So let's do it again with this guy. So step one is we're going to subtract the ax term from both sides. So in this case, that's 10x, right? Because a just means whatever number's in front of the x. So I'm going to start by subtracting 10x from both sides. So those cancel. Here's my line. I'm going to be leaving that minus 2y See how that minus sign becomes a negative now? Okay. And then on the other side, again, what I'm going to do is these aren't like terms. I can't actually combine them. So I'm going to sneak this guy in the front. All right. And that's going to be written as negative 10x minus 8. Forgot my equal sign. All right. So that's step 1. Now step 2 is we're going to divide by b. And remember, b is just whatever's in front of the y. So I'm dividing by negative 2. And I'm going to divide everything by negative 2. So these cancel out. I'm left with just a y. Negative 10 divided by negative 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then if I think about my multiplication division bear, those are the two i's, so it'll be positive, right? So positive 5x. And then negative 8 divided by negative 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then a negative and another negative. Those are my two i's on my multiplication bear. So he has mouth left, the plus. And there we go. So that's y equals 5x plus 4. So that is how you write that equation in slope-intercept form. All right, so again, it looks kind of scary, but there's really concrete steps that you follow. Just make sure at the end that they're in the right order. Mine are, because I snuck it in at the beginning. All right, but double check and make sure that's the case, okay? And that's it, okay? So it's nice little steps. As long as you follow the steps, you should be all set.